So I'm Tracy, VP of Customer Experience at Identia. So thank you again for attending. Also on the line, we have Brittany Monroe and Adam Vanikiotis, who both of them are working customer service. Brittany also is our production manager and handles making sure all of you guys get your tags on time and your serial numbers are not duplicated. So if you want to say hello to them, feel free. I know you've probably talked to them many times before. So those were some quick introductions. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the two different types of physical inventory process you can do in Identia and the differences between the two. Then we'll kind of give you a step-by-step, walk you through how it's done so you can see it happen. Then we'll have some time left for additional Q&A if you want it. And then if you need us to follow up or if you would like to implement either of these inventory processes and haven't already, and need some help and want some instruction, we'd be happy to set up some time to work with you on doing that down the road whenever it's convenient for you. So the types of physical inventory processes you can do will depend on whether or not you use a shipping process and set statuses for your inventory items in the Identia database. So if you employ a shipping process that sets each item's status when it leaves your yard, usually it sets the status to shipped or delivered or something like that. So in this example, we'll be using the status of shipped to denote an item that has left the yard and been delivered. The result of that shipping process, the result of a physical inventory process where you use shipping statuses is a list of the actual discrepancies. We'll give you the list of discrepancies. You'll be able to research where items were missed, figure out what needs updating, and then import the changes or your fixes. So the prerequisites to that are you need a custom property called status, where you'll set the status of every item in your database, and we can help you through that if you set that up if you don't have one. You'll need a date custom property called inventory date, and you'll set that date when you perform the physical inventory in your yard. You'll need a physical inventory process with a single step that sets that date. And then you'll need the physical inventory update report in your management portal, and we can help you get any of those four things if you don't have them already. Then the second type of physical inventory you can do is if you do not set that status, say we do have some customers that they never set a status of their items. So all items look as if they're in the yard, but they use the job shipments function to track shipments that are delivered and when they're shipped. And we'll take a look at that. If you've never used it, you'll get to see that. But the difference there is that the job shipments functionality does not track the actual items that were shipped. It only tracks what was in the shipment. So 2 of item type A and 3 of item type B were in this shipment, but it's not going to tell you the exact serial numbers. Job shipments don't track the actual serial numbers, just the item types that are included in each shipment. So if you're not tracking the actual items as they leave the yard, then the result of the physical inventory process will be just a count of each custom item type that should be in your yard, along with how many you scanned when you did the physical inventory process, and we'll tell you what the difference is. So you can see the counts if you're off. And we'll show you, I'll go through both of these processes so you can see how they work. And the prerequisites to the second type, if you're using job shipments, is that all of the item types you want to inventory have to be custom item types in a job. It's not going to work for stock. So you have to use job shipments to track the quantity of each item type included in the shipment. You need a physical inventory process that sets the inventory date. And then your Identia management portal needs the physical inventory counts report. And again, if you need help getting any of that set up, we'd be more than happy to schedule some time to do that for you. Okay, so real quick, before we get into that actual Identia system and walk through it, the overview of the steps or if you're using a shipping process where you set the status, you're going to scan each item in your yard and run the physical inventory process. That sets an inventory date on every item scanned. So let's say today you had 100 pieces in your yard and you want to get an inventory or get an inventory count of what's in your yard, you would scan every item in the yard and run that physical inventory process and set your inventory date to today. Some people, depending on the size of your yard and how many pieces you have in inventory, it may take you multiple days to get through scanning every item that's in your yard. As long as you know what date you started that inventory process, if it takes you 3 days and you started today, as long as you know what your inventory start date was, you'll be fine. So it could take multiple days. So then you run the physical inventory update report, and that report is going to spit out a list of every item in your database that is not shipped. So it should be showing up as in your yard in the database, but it was not scanned in step 1. So basically those would be items that it's supposed to be in your yard, but it's not because it didn't get scanned, and it will give you a list so you can research those items and find out maybe it was set off to the side because it needed repair and it just accidentally didn't get scanned when you did the physical inventory scanning. Maybe it was shipped and the shipping process didn't get run, so the status didn't get updated. But it will give you a list of the actual serial numbers that are not marked as shipped, but they were not out in your yard. So you can research them and find out what happened and fix the discrepancies. You can download that report to Excel, enter the information in the Excel spreadsheet to fix the discrepancies, and then re-upload or import that spreadsheet back into the database, and that will fix those discrepancies for you. And you'll be able to see that happen today. For the job shipments, you do the same basic process for scanning. You're going to scan every item in your yard over a period of a couple of days. You may be able to get it done in 1 day or over a period of days. Then you'll run the physical inventory counts report, and it will compare all of the counts of the items that you just scanned in the physical inventory process and compare that to your job shipments and tell you if you scanned more items in the yard than according to your job shipments you should have. But because the job shipments don't have actual serial numbers and keep track of the actual items that were shipped, we're not going to be able to tell you exactly which items need researching. It's just going to be a count, a difference in the counts. Like item type A, you should have 24 in your yard, you only scan 23. Or there should be 24 in your yard and you scan 25. But we won't be able to tell you what the serial numbers are if you're using just the job shipments. In your Identicia management portal, bottom left corner of the screen, you should have this support button. So if you need a refresher on how this inventory process works after the webinar and you didn't get a copy, a recording of the webinar, or you just want some quick help, if you click the support button and type in physical inventory, it will find you an article or all the articles where that have the physical inventory keyword. But the first one that it'll find you is executing a physical inventory process. If you click that, it'll go through step-by-step instructions of everything we're going to go through today. So you'll be able to find this after this afternoon. And if you're not using the support function and need help sometime, it's a good place to find this quick and easy instructions, or can't remember where a button is or what a field does. This is a good way to get some quick help. But we're always here at support@identicia.com, or you're welcome to give us a call if you can't find what you need in the support database, in the knowledge base. All right, so first thing I want to show you is work with a single job. And just for the sake of simplicity today, during the webinar, I'm just going to we're just going to assume that the items for this job are the only items that we have in inventory. So I'm going to look at items by job. And in this case, you can see I've got one job with 18 items in finished goods. So there should be 18 items in my yard. And I produced 12 items You can see that. 12 items for this job that I've already shown the status is shipped. So there should be these 18 items in my yard. And I want to do a physical inventory and make sure that those 18 items are physically in the yard. So the first thing I would do is go start scanning items in the yard and setting the inventory dates. And I'm going to show you real quick in my processes. I have a physical inventory process, and there's one step to the process. The only thing it does is set the inventory date, and that date defaults to today. So whoever's running the process really doesn't have to do anything except scan the tags and hit next, and then sync. And if you're using multi-scan, you could scan up to 50 tags at a time, 50 items, and then sync between each batch of 50 items. I'm not going to, since I don't have items in front of me and tags in front of me, rather than running the process on the mobile device, I'm going to use the item import spreadsheet in order to simulate having run the physical inventory process. So if we look at this spreadsheet, there we go. And if you're unsure of how the item import spreadsheets work, or we're not aware that you can update items and set custom properties on items through importing a spreadsheet, again, you can use that support button in the Identicia website and learn more. If you just type in the keyword import, it will find you some instructions, or shoot us an email afterwards and we'll be happy to walk you through that too. But in this case, I've got, here's my job, or the serial numbers, and the serial numbers for the sake of this demonstration are Tracy 1, Tracy 6, Tracy item 7. These are my serial numbers. They all belong to this job, and they have different item types. Item type number 1, there's 4 of item type 2, and about, 10 or so of item type 3. So I'm going to simulate having scanned each one of these serial numbers, these are the item types, and I've run the inventory process, which would set this inventory date field. If I ran the inventory process, it would set this date. So I'm going to import this spreadsheet and set the inventory date to 4/17 as if I had scanned all of these items and run the inventory process. So back in Identicia, I'm going to go to the Items tab, and I'm going to hit Import. There's 15 items that are going to be imported. I hit the Import button, and it's finished. So I'm going to go look at this job. Here's my job. There's the 3 item types. You can see that I have produced 5 of 10 required for that item type, 10 of 20 for this one, 15 of 30 for this item type. A few of them have been shipped in job shipments, and we'll get to that. But if you look at item type 1, if I click on this one, you can see these were the items that have been produced. And one of the items of item type 1, this serial number, I just updated that item using this spreadsheet and set the inventory date to 4/17. So I can check that on that serial number. There's the inventory date is now 4/17. So all of those from the spreadsheet that I imported have an inventory date set of 4/17. And there it says finished goods. So it should be in the yard. I scanned it. That one should show up okay. So after you have finished running that inventory process, scanning every item in the yard and set the inventory dates, so you could have 1,000 pieces in the yard, so you should now have 1,000 pieces with an inventory date of today. Then I'm going to go to my report screen, and I'm going to run the physical inventory update report and put in the last physical inventory start date. Like I said, it may take a couple of days for you to actually scan every single piece in your yard. Whatever day you started that process, that's the date you should enter here. So I'm going to put 4/17/2020. I've viewed my report. 3, I got 3 items that the status does not say shipped, so it's a finished goods item, which should be in the yard, but it did not get scanned. I did not set the inventory date to 4/17 on these 3 items. So now I can use this report to go research these 3 serial numbers and find out what happened. I know what the job number is. If I'm using jobs, you'll have that information, so you can maybe look at paperwork for that job and see, oh, this item actually shipped. Somebody just forgot to update the status and set the status to shipped. So if I go download, I can download this report to Excel. And open that spreadsheet that I just downloaded. Open it. I'm gonna enable editing. And this first one, let's say I do some research and I realize that this top item was shipped. Somebody just missed setting the status to ship. So I'm gonna set the status to shipped. And the same thing is true for this bottom one. With this one right here, I realized the reason that it didn't get scanned, it was because it was around the side of the building in an area where somebody was doing some finishing work or repair work, repairing a crack. So instead of, I'm not going to set its status to shipped because it hasn't been shipped. I'm going to send somebody out there to scan it and run the inventory process. So I'm just going to delete that one off my list because it's going to get taken care of elsewhere. Somebody's going to scan it and set that inventory date. Now I'm going to save this Excel spreadsheet that I downloaded and updated as a CSV file. Let's see. We'll call it post-physical inventory process. And now I'm going to go back to Identicia, back to the Items tab, and just like I imported in order to set those inventory dates, I'm going to re-import this spreadsheet so that it will set the status of these items to shipped. So 2 items will be imported. Hit import. Now if I report again, physical inventory update, same date. Now I've just got that one item that's left that somebody needs to go out in the yard and scan it and run that physical inventory process to set the inventory date. I can actually go into that item and as if somebody did that, find item 30. I'm just going to hit edit. JK, here we go, inventory date. I want to set that to today as if somebody out in the yard scanned it and set the inventory date to today. I go back to the report again. Nothing left. I've reconciled all of the items that didn't get scanned and hadn't been hadn't had a status set to shipped. Okay, so I think most people use a shipping process and set statuses to shipped. I think there are a few folks out there that use job shipments. So we'll give you a quick, brief overview of that. On my Jobs tab, you can see here I've got 3 item types in this job. I've produced 5 of item type 1, 10 of item type 2, and 15 of item type 3. And of these 5, I have shipped 3. Of these 10, I've shipped 3. And of these 15, I have not shipped any. And if you go over to the Shipments tab, you can see where I've got 3 shipments that I've created. 2 of them were scheduled in the past and have already shipped. And you can see their statuses shipped. They're marked as shipped, and these were the shipping dates. If I click on an individual shipment, you can see that in this shipment, there were 2 of item type 1 shipped and 1 of item type 2 shipped. If I go back to that job on the shipments tab and look at shipment number 2, it's the opposite of that. Item type 2 had 2 shipped and item type 1 had 1 shipped. But you notice nowhere can you see what the serial numbers of these items were. It just counts the number of items, number of each item type shipped. It does not tell you what the serial numbers were. No status gets updated when you ship a process or ship items through the job shipments tab. Does not set statuses. It only counts the items by type. And I've got one more shipment that's due to go out today. So in this case, I would do the same thing real quick. I'm going to run a background process and set everything on this job back to where we started. Let's go back and look at the items by job report now. Now in this case, we're simulating where there's no status being set. Items don't have status updates. You just track shipments in your job shipments screen. So in this case, I've got items in this job. They have no status. The status column is blank. And you can see I've got 30 of them, but there's no way to know which of them have shipped and which haven't. I don't know how many are in my yard or which items should be in my yard. You can really only track that if you're setting the status, but not everybody does. So if you just want to count, do a physical inventory reconciliation of the counts. In this case, I'm going to do the same basic thing where I've got my job shipments, same set of items. And in this case, I'm going to set the inventory date the same way I did before to 4/17. I've gone through the yard and I scanned all of these items in the yard. So I'm going to import this spreadsheet and set that inventory date to 4/17 on all of these items that were found in the yard and scanned. So I'm going to go to items, import. Oh, and real quick, before we do that, I'll show the before picture of this report here. And physical inventory counts. There's a lot of demo data in this database, but we're going to focus on just this job we've been using, this job here, 11111. So you can see, as we saw on the job screen, I've produced 5 of these, 10 of these, 15 of these, and I've shipped 3 of each of the first 2. Getting that information from the job shipment screen, which means I can do a calculation. This is a calculated inventory count because I have not actually run the physical inventory process, so I don't have an actual count yet. And we're just doing the math. You've produced 5. According to job shipments, you've shipped 3, so there should be 2 of these in the yard. And we have not done the actual physical inventory count yet, so it's set to 0. That gives me a discrepancy of 2. So now if I could go import this spreadsheet as if I've gone out into the yard and scanned all those items. So 20 items will have the physical inventory date set to today. So I scanned every item in the yard, set that physical inventory date. Now if I go back to the physical inventory count report, put in my inventory date, and again, it's the whatever date you started. Now we can see that I scanned 3 of these in the yard. According to job shipments, the production report on my job screen, I've produced 5 and I shipped 3. So I should have 2 in the yard, but there's actually 3 in the yard. So somewhere in one of those job shipments, either you've produced an item that didn't get scanned and didn't get set into a shipment properly, or you set a shipment where the count of items included in that shipment was 1 too many. So you may need to go do some research to figure that out, and you can update the shipment information if you need to update that. And here, second one, I've produced 10, I've shipped 3. There should be 7 in the yard, only found 5 in the yard. So you may have shipped 2 too many, or maybe 2 of those 7 were damaged and scrapped, and you need to create 2 more, or produce 2 more. but you'll need to do some research to find out why these counts are off. And in this case, the last one, same thing, only scanned 12, but there should be 15. So you'll need to do some research to find out where the counts are off and see what you can do to update those. But with this physical inventory process, because you're using job shipments and there's no status set on each individual item, there's no way for me to tell you, or for Identicia to tell you, what serial numbers are missing or what serial numbers were shipped that will need updating. So you'll have to do some digging on your own to figure that out, figure out what those items are. Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for attending. I'll make sure to send a copy of the recording out for you so that you can share it with others if you need to. Also, don't forget about the support button. It's always there if you need it, and you're welcome to email at support@Identicia.com or give us a call if you have questions. We'd always be more than happy to help. And we're going to try to start doing webinars like this once a quarter to begin with. We may do them more often if we find attendance is good and the need is there. So if you ever have a topic that you think would be good for a webinar and you'd like for us to cover it sometime as a group and get some input and let us show you how things like that happen or how it would work, shoot us an email and we'll be happy to put something together for you. Thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful afternoon and please stay safe and healthy.